James, thank you for coming, man. I appreciate you showing up. And I just want to have a brief conversation, man, about what's going on in our community.
Yes.
I'm all about community and fellowship relationship. Right now, it seems like our community is suffering. We have in the United States some challenges with the Nashville 2.
Yes.
And the way that the protest for gun violence has kind of caused a split in the Nashville community and maybe the broader community at large, African Americans and with our Euro-American brothers and sisters. What do you think about what's going on with the Nashville 2 and, just in the broad sense, dealing with this gun violence in the African American community?
Well, first of all, Orlando, it's always a pleasure to be in your presence, man. I really appreciate the opportunity just to talk, and talk about the issues of the day. I do think it's extremely serious. My heart goes out to the victims and their families of such a tragic event. I have to think about something that I heard, and I continually hear. I guess the proper way to put it, is on the other side. They talk about having a God-given right to bear arms. A God-given right to bear arms, and they are staunch about it. They're not going to waver. They don't even want to discuss any type of governance restricting them from having arms. And they say it's their God-given right. And yet I cannot find where anybody was born with a gun in their hand.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, what about equality? Having the God-given right to equality, or having a God-given right to civility, or even just embracing the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, embracing the tenets therein, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and how we treat each other. So it's a huge issue. It's problematic. And I think it gets entangled with people's politics, their worldview, their ignorance, their lack of understanding, and then just people not having compassion and love for one another. And what's so perplexing to me, Orlando, is that many of the people who on the other side, again, they have the audacity to say that they're Christian, and they hold to the Christian faith and tenets. And I don't see that expression coming out of them. So therefore it becomes even more problematic. And so, we have to deal with that and all that represents. And we're seeing it being spilled out in everyday life, in our politics, in the way we treat each other, in society at large.
You talked about being Christian. Even in our own communities, we are seeing some polarization in those who profess Christianity and those who have become disillusioned. Wow. And said, I don't want to be Christian. The Christianity that we have or espouse is powerless, is impotent. It doesn't do anything but make preachers money, like yourself.
Right.
You're one of them rich preachers. But what it speaks to is the way that we have not engaged in community.
Yes, I am a pastor, and it really pricks me, because I remember a time once back when I was coming up and a young lad, the church at large, the black church, was so engaging. If you wanted to be elected, you had to come to the black church. If you wanted to have any type of successful event, it had to flow through the black church. You had to advertise through the black church. You had to get the blessings of the clergy, of the pastor, through the black church. And so that was a a centralized institution in our community. That and the barbershop and the beauty shops,
Right.
you had that affected change in our community. We were talking earlier about community. You're huge on community. You've helped me foster and embrace that totality of community. The proverb, "It takes the entire village to rear a child," is so true. And we've got to get back to that. And so with modernity, what I see today, the absence of church. Churches themselves, with the multiplicity of denominations and thoughts, they're doing their own thing.
Right.
And it's not a sense of community. And here's the thing for me, it's okay to do your own thing. I can respect and embrace and love you as you do your own thing, but we have to find some commonality for the good of community.
Right.
That we are a power, a force to reckon with. And until we get back to that, then we're going to be tossed by everything that they throw at us, and that's sad.
And what I started thinking about when you talked about historically, going back to the missionary Baptist church that I grew up in, and the churches around, yes, they were very active. They were socially active, politically active, economically active.
That's right.
And all of those things created an environment to where a young person like myself said, "I want to be like that preacher who took the charge. If there was something going on in the community, that preacher was engaged in social transformation."
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. You said that. And for me, as just my personal observation, now I think society somewhat disdains pastors. It's just, they're not respected. I think, and like you said, there's a lot of people who are shunning the church. Their misconception that the pastor is making all this money and getting all this and taking out of the community and things like that. Of course, there have been abuses, but that's not the totality of everything. But their emotions won't allow them to see that.
Right.
And so, non quod intelligente, we condemn what we don't understand. We condemn what we don't know. And that's sad. That's a sad indictment. But as we were up on the campus of Georgia Tech today, and we ran into the individual who told us that, we as black men, black and brown men, we have to have the courage just to say something, to engage people, not just the youth, but just to engage people. And we need that with each other in our community, to listen. We can be different. And instead of rejecting each other for our difference, we can embrace each other for our similarities in being human, our humanities.
I want to jump in right there.
Yeah.
As a hospital chaplain, I was asked, what is the difference between a chaplain and a pastor?
All right.
I engaged him in that space. But then there was another question about difference. He wanted to know about why we have so many challenges in relationships and inside of the Christian religion.
Right.
And I said this. I said there's a text where Moses and the 12 spies. The 12 spies are gathered up. It's Joshua, Caleb, and then the other the other 10.
Right.
Why did God say 12? He didn't want everybody to think the same.
Right.
But the difference is relationship.
Right.
To where we all wrestle together. Going back to what I said earlier about Howard Thurman, contact without fellowship or contact without relationship. We need a greater level of sitting down together, having conversations that we get understanding.
Yeah.
In all thy getting,
Get understanding.
Understanding.
Right.
And that doesn't come by me thinking that I'm over here doing my thing,
Right.
you're over there. We have no communication. Right. We're making assumptions.
Right.
So James, as a person who's engaged in both your family life,
yes,
and community, and with the church, how do you take care of you in the midst of being this multifaceted person?
Oh, wonderful question. I'm a work in progress, and having brothers such as yourself in my life that hold me accountable, that I can communicate to, that I can be extremely transparent, I can be my authentic self with, right. And that helps me ground myself. It helps me to rediscover myself. Mm-hmm. It helps me to learn myself, to challenge myself, to grow myself, to be again the best me that God has intended to be. So it's so multifaceted. It's getting rest. It's stealing away, having private time. It's doing some of the things that I enjoy doing in life, making time, being intentional. Has been enormous and extremely important in my life at this stage. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I just kept going. But that is not beneficial. It's not fruitful. Mm-hmm. So just gleaning from everything that I've learned and learning to invite others in your life. As you were talking about earlier, relationships is vital. Mm-hmm. And that is part of my whole process of self-care and getting proper rest and to be able to do the things that God has called me to do.
Right. One thing, as we wrap up, mm-hmm. as you were talking, I was thinking about post-crucifixion and Jesus coming in the midst of the disciples. Okay. Thomas being the doubter. Right. And he's saying, "Here, touch me." Right. Right. Feel me. Right. Know that I have these wounds. Right. Know that I'm, this human. Right. Know that, that I'm in relationship, have been in relationship with you. Right. And that I am in process. Right. Right. And so what I'm thinking about is, again, this relationship, again, going back to community, mm-hmm. and relationship, that he invites the disciples on this relationship journey. Mm-hmm. And invites them into this relationship of pain, suffering, right. But also inviting them of the hope of the future, right? Because he now is going to the Father with resurrection power, yeah. And that he's now saying, "Okay, I want you to continue this journey, knowing that I've been wounded, right, and that you may have some wounds also, absolutely, but there is still hope for this future because of the power that I've been able to obtain." Yeah. After this event. I know we're wrapping up, Pastor. You don't play fair. You don't fight fair. Because again, when you talk about that authentic message of Christ, who is showing himself to Thomas. I'm still in process, Thomas, but here you go. If you need additional evidence, if everything else that you haven't really persuaded you or you haven't arrived at your conclusion or whatever, wherever you are at, in your process, here I am, so you can embrace it. And that's so powerful. You said this, suffering and challenges and all these things that Jesus went through, and he exposes his disciples to, and to encourage them, because he knows that they're going to have to go through the same thing, the suffering, the challenges, and all this kind of thing. And when I talk about authentic self, I think that's the authentic message of Christ. But that empowerment that we will overcome, however it looks like. Mm-hmm. And when you take yourself out the equation to allow God to be God in your life, and whatever path that looks like, to have the courage to walk it out and to live it out, that's the power of God. And that's what the resurrection means to me, because I think many of us, most Christians, Lord have mercy, we have a facade of what we think that our lives should be. Mm-hmm. But are we willing to live our lives as he has deemed? All things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are the called according to his
purpose.
Yeah.
And when we live that authentic life, and it's our authentic self, as if we are Thomas, if we are Peter, if we are Matthew, whoever we are, but we accept the will. And that's what they did. They accepted God's will for their lives. And that is so powerful and impactful. And our community needs to get back to that place.
Right.
You know, to live out his will. And then we'll start restoring our communities, healing this our community and the nation and the world.
Thank you, James.
Appreciate it, brother.
For the conversation.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right.
All right.